Good morning, everyone. This is Karen Hall, FIP Program Manager. FIP stands for Population Health Improvement Program. So welcome to our bi-monthly FIP webinar series, and today we have a fantastic presentation for you with Victoria Davis and Karl Shallowhorn from the Erie County Mental Health Association and Compeer. The program today is Creating a Mentally Healthy Workplace. And our presenters today, our first presenter is Victoria Davis. Victoria is the Manager of Workplace and Community Wellbeing. And Victoria has a Master of Science degree in Health and Human Performance and a Bachelor of Science degree in Psychology and Human Development. Victoria joined the Mental Health Association of Erie County in 2016 as the Manager of Workplace and Community Wellbeing. In this role, she hopes to reduce the mental health stigma at companies around Western New York while providing the tools necessary to help employees become both physically and mentally well. She created and launched the new Mindset program in 2017 to the Western New York community with 3 specific goals in mind: help companies reduce stigma around mental health, open up the conversation around mental health, and lower the barriers to employees getting help. Our second presenter is Karl Shallowhorn, and Karl is the Director of Community Advocacy for the Mental Health Association of Erie County and Compeer Buffalo. He is a New York State credentialed alcoholism and substance abuse counselor and has worked in both the addictions and mental health fields. Karl is the author of Working on Wellness, a Practical Guide to Mental Health, and is a contributor, writer, and blogger for Bipolar Magazine and also writes his own blog, The Hope Shot. He is a certified mental health first aid instructor for adults, children, veterans, higher education, and older adult communities. Karl has a master's degree in student personnel administration from SUNY Buffalo State, and Karl is also the facilitator for some courses offered through the Mindset program. So as a reminder to folks on the call, you are going to be muted, and if you have any questions for Karl or Victoria, you can type them into the chat box, and we'll field those questions to Karl and Victoria at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I will turn the presentation over to Victoria.
Hi, this is Victoria Davis. Karl Shallowhorn is going to be starting out doing the presentation, and then he will turn it over to me to do the second half. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Karl.
Thanks, Victoria. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're enjoying this nice spring day. And we're going to start off with our presentation. Basically, there's some basic information that you might want to know about. It is being recorded, and it's going to be posted on the P2 Collaborative's YouTube page. And then, as it says there, if you have any questions, just type them into your chat box during the webinar, and we'll try to answer them at the end. So, mental health in the workplace, there's a number of things that people may not be aware of. First of all is the prevalence of mental illness in our society. 1 in 5 people lives with a diagnosable mental illness, and that could be anything from basic concerns from anxiety to depression and even more severe illnesses like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and mental health is on a spectrum. So you might have someone that lives with a mild disorder, and it could be something that is severe. So basically, it's a continuum, and we all live somewhere on that continuum. The idea of presenteeism is something where a person might be at work, however, they may be preoccupied with something that's going on in their daily lives outside of work, which then can be something that may distract them or cause them to lose focus with their job, which could result in accidents or errors in the work that they do. So presenteeism, is very, very prevalent. It's also, you think about absenteeism, but also being on the job and not being present is just as critical. We know that more work days are lost or disrupted by mental illness than by chronic conditions such as arthritis, diabetes, and heart disease. That also is something that people don't often realize, but mental health itself and mental illness is a key contributor to lost productivity. So mental health issues in the workplace cost an astronomical number of $80 to $100 billion annually to the U.S. economy. So when you look at the bottom line in terms of dollars, mental health and mental illness is something that is certainly a factor in companies' productivity and how they are able to generate income. And then depression alone causes an estimated 200 million lost workdays in a given year in the U.S. alone. That is something that, of course, is discovered through claims put in for insurance. Oftentimes, HR professionals in these organizations are helping to process these claims, but we do know that through research that's the #1 cause for lost workdays. There are a number of risk factors when you talk about mental health and mental illness in the workplace. First of all, the idea of work overload or pressure. We live in a society where we're asked to do more with less, and that then produces a sense of stress for individuals, and that stress is then translated into burnout and fatigue, so that's a big problem. Another risk factor is the idea of not being clear on what an individual's work role is. So, for instance, you might be starting a new position or you might be transitioning into a new position and your responsibilities aren't clearly defined. So when that happens, there's some uncertainty, which then can raise anxiety and stress as well. Lack of recognition can be something that can also be a risk factor. We all like to be given that, as we say, pat on the back for a job well done. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big, ceremony, for instance, or a huge recognition. However, some companies do have, Employee of the Month type of awards or other recognitions for a job well done. But even just when an employer or a manager says, you did a great job in this project, or, thank you for your help, that can make a big difference in terms of how a person feels about their role in the company as well as their morale in general. So that lack of recognition is something that a person can oftentimes internalize and becomes more of something that may inhibit their performance. We do live in a society and time when things are changing. We are certainly in flux as far as the workplace in terms of the jobs that are in place and how we're looking at the future. We do not live in a society where jobs are as guaranteed, I guess you could say, as they were in the past. There are cuts going on in organizations all over the country, and as I said before, doing more with less. So as we move into more automated types of organizations and businesses, there's also other means that are cutting jobs. So when people feel that sense of insecurity, that can also raise anxiety and stress, which then could produce other problems. We also know that the idea of working these long hours is really critical, and of course, feeling there's no purpose to the work that we do. If a person is in the workplace and they are not feeling that they're contributing or they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, that can also be a risk as well. And then when it comes to lack of resources, that could be actual, monetary resources or other tools that a person uses to help them do their job. If there's that lack of resources, that can produce, additional stress because the person may feel that they're not being supported. So, being able to provide those resources that a person needs can be something that could be more of a protective factor than a risk factor. And then finally, bullying in the workplace is something that is there that oftentimes happens when there might be issues going on between coworkers or even supervisors to individuals. On a personal note, I have a friend who experienced this in the workplace, and he said how difficult it was to deal with his manager because of the fact that he felt he was being harassed and bullied. And it really is very, very stressful and can produce a lot of mental health problems, which oftentimes a person isn't willing to report because they're afraid of repercussions, they're afraid of losing their job, and they don't want to make waves, and therefore the person suffers many times in silence. So now we're going to look at depression, stress, and anxiety in the workplace. Essentially, stress is a physical, mental, or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension. And these stresses can be external, whether it be from the environment, psychological, or social situations, or they can be internal, whether it be internal from illness or from a medical procedure. So stress can initiate what we call the fight or flight response, a complex reaction of neuro and endocrine systems. So essentially, stress in that fight or flight response is something that we're all born with. It's really primal, I guess you could say, and it's always been there. But when we are undergoing stress, one or two things can happen. Either we fight or we flee, or actually we can also freeze. So there are a number of things that can happen when we undergo stress. So there are a lot of causes for stress, as you see here. Health issues, emotional problems, relationships, and so forth. One of the things we know that when a person's dealing with stress, many times they don't know how to manage it. They don't know what to do, and they don't know how to manage it in a healthy way, in a very proactive way. So they will then, come to these stressors and have, issues as a result, oftentimes reflected and manifested in ways that affect their mental health. One of the things you see there in the bottom is post-traumatic stress disorder, and that is essentially a mental health condition that is caused by a traumatic event. And a traumatic event could be anything from being involved in an accident, witnessing a crime, being a victim of abuse, oftentimes, in childhood. So we know that when trauma is experienced by a person, they will then manifest not only just mental health concerns, but also physical health issues as well. There was a study done about 30 years ago, and it's an ongoing study called the ACEs study, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. And the ACEs study was a longitudinal study that followed, thousands of individuals. It was actually based in California over a period of time. And what they learned was that, the trauma that a person goes through at a very early age in life can then result in mental health as well as physical health problems later. So even things along mental health issues, but things like cancer, diabetes, heart disease can be a result of stress early on and trauma early on in a person's life. So, of course, we have jobs, surroundings, and so forth. Family concerns, these can all cause stress. So some of the symptoms we look at when it comes to stress are, as you see here, these are the things that oftentimes are the physical manifestations of stress. So if you are under stress, you might have a fast heartbeat. Think about if you have a stressful day, you come home from work, you have a headache, and of course, sometimes when that happens, people feel they need to, take care of that in a way that may not be so healthy, whether it be with drugs or alcohol or even food or so forth. You might have that pain or tightness in your neck and shoulders. Many times people carry their stress in that kind of a way. Back pain, fast breathing is something. If a person is having a panic attack or is under major stress, they may hyperventilate. And then you see the other issues there as well, sweating and sweaty palms, an upset stomach, nausea or diarrhea. So these are all physical symptoms that are manifested as a result of stress. And when you look at work, there are some things that you can identify when stress is happening there. So a person might be seeming to be really irritable. They might not be able to manage even the small problems that happen. They may snap at someone. They might, especially when you're working closely with someone and they might not be having a good day, they might just seem to be, out of sorts, and you might see them act out like that. They might be frustrated. They may lose their temper, especially with someone who may not typically be that way, but all of a sudden you notice that they're very short with you, or they're really just kind of demonstrating that they're not, doing well. That could be something that happens. There may be that inability to focus. They might have difficulty, being able to complete their job in a way that's, on time. So they may be preoccupied, like I said before, in terms of being, having that presenteeism kind of thing going on. Or they may just essentially not be able to meet those deadlines and really have difficulty getting the job accomplished. They may be worrying about small things or worrying that bad things are about to happen. And really, when you think about it, the early signs of stress at work are necessary to be identified in order to provide that early intervention. So when these symptoms are seen or these signs are seen, if you're able to intervene early, then it's more likely that the problem will be able to be addressed in a way that can be more proactive, and then the results aren't as severe or hopefully even as significant as if they're not addressed. So we need to make sure that we watch for these things in our coworkers and for our employees so that if they do need to be guided to get help, and I think Victoria's going to talk later about EAP and other services, it's really important to do that early. Anxiety is something that, as I mentioned before, is associated with stress. It's really that natural response to danger. It's sort of like that automatic alarm that goes off when you feel threatened, under pressure, or you're facing a stressful situation. Everyone has anxiety from one time to another for whatever reason. And I said before that mental health is on a continuum or on spectrum. So a person might have mild anxiety. It could be episodic. It could be, running late for a meeting or being late for an appointment. It might be on the other extreme, being under such stress that it's ongoing. And there are a number of different types of anxiety disorders, but when a person's feeling anxiety, it can be something that gets in the way of their performance at work. And do you see here, there's the list of different anxiety disorders. So generalized anxiety disorder has to do with just a general sense of worry. Sometimes, they used to say a person's a worrywart, yes, you could use that term, but they're someone who is just typically worried about things in general. There's always that sense of unknowing and uncertainty that creates that feeling of discomfort. Anxiety attacks are one that happen to someone. It's essentially a very quick onset of anxiety that can happen real quickly, and they typically peak within about 10 minutes and then subside after that. However, when a person is experiencing a panic attack, they may feel that they're having a heart attack because the symptoms are very similar, especially the physical symptoms, the heart racing, the hyperventilation, the tingling, sensation in the fingers and the arms, the legs. So the symptoms that go along with an anxiety attack can be very scary, especially if you've never experienced them before. Social phobia is something that a person might experience if they're uncomfortable in social situations. They may not feel comfortable in groups. They may have difficulty speaking in groups. And this could be a problem in the workplace, especially if you have a team member who might have to present in a group situation or work with others. So that could be difficult. A specific phobia is something where an individual might be afraid of, say, a dog or a cat or something along those lines, or an insect or heights or that kind of thing. Specific phobias are more common. However, they do not impact a person as severely as maybe a panic attack would or some of the other disorders that you see on the page here. So specific phobias are more common, but they're less likely to disrupt a person's daily activities. OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, is relatively common. You might have someone, for instance, that has this need to check or count or have ritualistic behaviors like hand washing. So if you recall, you might have remembered the television show Monk, which basically had the lead character, the detective who lived with obsessive compulsive disorder. He would engage in these rituals. However, in his case, he was still able to complete his work, but it still was something that you could see that he had to deal with every day. And there are many people that have OCD that deal with this, but are able to manage it through the use of interventions like cognitive behavioral therapy and other treatments as well. So it can be overcome. Seasonal affective disorder is something that is anxiety and also ties in with depression. That essentially is, of course, here in the West New York area, and actually much throughout the Northeast, involves, that lack of sunlight, wintertime when things are gloomy, and sometimes even the physical component of that lack of vitamin D, which is produced, we can get from the sunlight. So when a person experiences this lack of sunlight, their mood might be lessened or more down, rather. They might have difficulty, getting out of bed, or might have fatigue, and their overall mood is just really affected by that. And like I mentioned before, PTSD is something that sometimes people will have when they have undergone traumatic events. Often you hear about veterans who are dealing with PTSD from, deployments. More so than ever, we know now that our veterans are returning to the U.S. and, dealing with these issues. It's always been there, except now it's more prominent than ever. We are in a real crisis with our veterans with PTSD and even suicide. So we know that, for instance, if you do have employees that are veterans, we need to take that into account and be mindful of that, because they may have special needs in this area that perhaps you're not equipped to handle, but there are resources that are available in our community to assist them. And then here's some of the symptoms of anxiety. As you see, there are things like that overwhelming panic. That's really more along the lines of a panic attack, when it's that surge, that really quick onset of anxiety. The fear of losing control, the heart palpitations. That's where I said before, you might feel like you're having a heart attack, and that can be very scary. The chest gets constricted, and it's very, very uncomfortable. You might feel like you're going to pass out. There might be trouble breathing, hyperventilation, where the breathing is very rapid. There might be hot flashes or chills, or trembling or shaking. So when a person is experiencing these feelings, they may certainly feel like they're losing control and are having that issue that they don't know what to do or how to handle it. At work, here's some of the early warning signs of anxiety: that decline in dependability, that lower quality of work, decreased involvement, and so forth. So anxiety is something that can certainly get in the way. It could be distracting. It could be something that interferes with the ability to get a job accomplished. So when a person does undergo or experience these types of signs, you want to identify that and know how to intervene. So, for instance, if you do see a coworker or an employee that's dealing with this, you might want to approach them and ask them, is everything okay? Is there anything that you need help with? Let them know about the resources that you have available in your organization to assist them. And if those resources are not available internally, where can they go in the community to get help? The Mental Health Association here in Erie County is a hub for information that people can call or go to our website and get information. So, there are many of these types of resources available throughout the state, no matter where you're at, to get help in your local communities for people that are having any number of these types of issues. Major depressive disorder is something that can affect a person, but we want to make sure that it lasts at least 2 weeks and affects a person's ability, their emotions, thinking, behavior, and physical well-being, and their ability to work and have satisfying relationships. Now, everyone feels down at one time or another. We've all felt sad because of, say, an experience we've had, but when it comes to major depressive disorder, we're usually looking at symptoms and signs that last at least 2 weeks. So it isn't something that happens, in a day or two and then you find relief from. It needs to be present for at least that 2 weeks. That's one of the main things we look for. If it doesn't get better after 2 weeks, that might mean the person might need some type of an intervention. It might mean going to their primary care physician, or, like I said before, maybe initially going to an EAP, representative to talk to them. But if it's going on for at least 2 weeks, if the symptoms and signs aren't getting any better, then it's best for that person to seek some help, because, as I said before, you want to get that early intervention to make sure that issue can be addressed so it doesn't get worse. And here you see some of the signs and symptoms of depression. So essentially, and these can often, as you see with the diagram in the middle, overlap with each other. So, there's that persistent sadness or that empty mood a person might feel. There could be those feelings of hopelessness, like things aren't going to get better. And then you see the other symptoms as well. I think what it comes down to, though, when you talk about depression, when you're feeling these things and when you're showing these signs, it's important to remember that there are interventions that could be utilized to help a person when they're experiencing these things. And the thing is that we need to encourage our employees and our staff to ask for help. If we change the culture in our organization to being one of being open and being honest about what's going on, then it's more likely that the person is going to be able to seek help and talk to someone about what's going on. So it's important to let them know that it's available and that the resources are there. Here's some other signs and symptoms. You know, you might have that early morning waking or insomnia. Of course, we all have probably experienced that at one time or another where either you can't get to sleep or you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get to sleep. But when it becomes a pattern, when it becomes something that lasts, like I said, over a couple of weeks, then it's something to be aware of. If there's that weight loss or gain, that's another thing to think of. And then, of course, in the most serious instance, if there's thoughts of death or suicide attempt, then certainly an intervention needs to happen to help the person. And then at work, once again, here's some of the early signs to look for with depression. If the person's consistently arriving late, or if they're unable to work with their colleagues, if their productivity goes down, these are the different things to look for if a person might be experiencing depression at work. And if you observe these things, you know, as I said before, and I know I'm probably sounding like a broken record, but it's important to guide them to the appropriate resources to get help. And if you provide that intervention early, then they're more likely to get back on track and be able to get to the place where they need to be productive and to be a part of the team. Now, when it comes to anxiety and depression, which are the two primary areas we're talking about here today, there are consequences. So as you see here, these are the consequences. There are, you know, not meeting the deadlines. If you are in a manufacturing type environment, there could be accidents. Or if you work in a office-based environment, there could be errors. I talked about absenteeism, presenteeism, when the person isn't, you know, focused on the job because of issues going on perhaps outside of work. There might be unhealthy relationships on the job, and there might be resentment about other staff or coworkers. And then you see there the unhealthy coping mechanisms that people might engage in, whether it be substance use, overeating, you know, blaming others, and so forth. So these are things that can happen if a person doesn't know how to do what needs to be done to deal with what they're going through with these types of disorders. On the other hand, we have healthy coping mechanisms. You know, these are the things that you can do to be proactive, to get help, and to learn how to manage stress, learn how to manage depression in a very healthy way. So first and foremost, and I think this is probably one of the best things to learn how to do, is to be open and to communicate. So, you know, when you talk to someone and let them know what's going on, oftentimes we just need someone to listen to us. And we don't need to have the answers. We might just need someone to be there, be present, and let us just vent and get the load off our shoulders. So that's one thing to think about. Getting professional help is certainly something. If a person is dealing with these issues, like I said, for several weeks or so, they might need to get professional help with what they're going through. Exercise, meditation, relaxation techniques, those have oftentimes and often known, even through research, known to be able to help with anxiety and depression. You know, exercise helps to release endorphins. Meditation is known to help relieve anxiety and stress. You know, relaxation techniques like breathing and so forth can be very helpful. Spending time with friends, taking a day off, you know, getting outside, those are the kind of things that you can do to really just blow off some steam and really helps to provide for a healthy distraction from the kind of stress that you're going through. And now I'm going to turn over to Victoria.
Thank you, Karl. So Karl really did an overview of what the signs and symptoms were of stress, anxiety, and depression and what to really look for. I'll go into it a little further in a minute, but we created a program to bring into organizations to help educate employees on how to identify symptoms within themselves or how to help management and leadership respond to different situations in the workplace. The Mental Health Association realized the importance of having employees take care of their mental health, because if you're not taking care of your mental health, your physical health is also going to take a hit. Because if somebody really isn't mentally well, they're not really going to care about, you know, how many steps they have on their Fitbit. They're really, you know, more worried about just getting out of bed in the morning and having a good day. So our goal through the Mindset program is to really open up the conversation around mental health. For example, in the workplace, if somebody has a broken leg, we may be more likely to ask them, what happened? How did you get that injury? How long are you going to have your cast on? But, we so often, if somebody is having some of those signs and symptoms that Karl mentioned, we are hesitant to ask somebody, how are you doing today, or what exactly, is going on? Is there anything I can do? Can I take some of your work, off of you today to, help you de-stress? Here, giving them the resources to go out into the community to get help. So, we really want to make sure that companies in Western New York are starting to create that mentally healthy workplace for employees to get help. So what exactly is a mentally healthy workplace? This definition came from Australia. It's a program called Beyond Blue. A mentally healthy workplace promotes positive workplace culture, minimizes those workplace risks that Karl mentioned related to mental health, supports people with mental health conditions appropriately, and prevents discrimination. We also in the workplace hear derogatory words around mental health, like she's crazy, or that person's psycho, and we really want to make sure that we are paying attention to those words and educating employees on what it means to have mental health issues, and that they don't need to be afraid of their colleagues, but getting them the help that they need. So really educating employees and management leadership can help reduce that discrimination against people. So what does it require in order to start creating a mentally healthy workplace? Commitment and involvement from all staff across the organization. Everyone can help each other, not just management and leadership. Colleagues can help, again, to really ask them how they're doing or to find out, what's going on with them. Leadership support. Wellness really does start at the top, not just, at the top for an individual to have good mental health, but also at the top of an organization. You really need leadership support to, create that true culture in an organization, whether it's, supporting physical health or mental health, and then creating an ongoing strategy. So many of you on this call may have wellness programs. You may have employee benefits that are there to help employees, and just don't forget to include mental health in that strategy when you're looking to promote total well-being in your workplace. So there's no one-size-fits-all approach. If you're looking at other organizations that have been successful in creating a well-being program that addresses total well-being, it may not work for your organization. You may be able to take pieces from it, but evaluating what the needs of your organization are from either claims data through your insurance carrier or broker, and then health assessments can also help. You can often get those from your health insurance carrier as well to really see what is driving the costs and what issues employees are having. Make sure that your organization is creating policies around mental health and make sure that you're enforcing them. So have a zero tolerance for bullying in the workplace, that derogatory language use that I mentioned, substance abuse policy, and then an open door policy to make sure that people feel comfortable talking to management and leadership about what's going on in their lives, of course, at the same time when respecting boundaries and confidentiality, but just making sure that they are able to talk to somebody and get the help that they need. So how can we start opening up the conversation around mental health in the workplace? It really starts, again, with leadership and creating that strategy to include mental health. But we can start with potentially sending out company-wide emails to management that explains the initiatives around mental health in the workplace, and that we are going to start addressing this, and there will be trainings for management and leadership on how to better respond to mental health in the workplace and how to help employees recognize signs and symptoms. Remind people it's okay to talk about mental health, and that it's not just physical health that's important. We really have to address the total well-being of an individual. Make sure that you're celebrating differences. There's different health observances throughout the year, so you can use the calendar through National Institute of Health to really take a look at all the different issues that we have and how to open up the conversation around different areas. Be supportive, be open, and share your story and listen to others. It's interesting when we do these presentations, we have everybody stand up who either has dealt with mental health issues themselves or has had somebody they know deal with a mental health issue. And almost everybody, or at least I would say 98 to 99% of people stand up. So just make sure that people know that they're not alone, and, you know, leadership and management, if you have stories, share them so people know that it's okay to talk about it. Make sure resources are available. Karl had mentioned this, and easy to access, so get the different resources to employees. Many of you may have EAP programs, and the EAP does take more of a little bit of a reactive approach. A lot of employees just go there when they're already having the issues. Our goal really is to help people build the skills necessary to, you know, create better mental health before they get to the crisis situations, and then encourage people to seek help. As employers, we're so likely to let people take off if they have strep throat or they do have a broken leg, but, you know, it's also important to let people go to those counseling appointments to allow them to get the help that they need to have good mental health as well. So do's and don'ts about opening up the conversation. As Karl mentioned, notice those signs and symptoms. It can be very important to let the colleague or somebody under you, if you're a manager, just that you're noticing the behavior change. We all know, for the most part, the baseline that people are at, you know, how your colleague usually acts. And if you see a change in that behavior, you can just ask them, you know, is something going on? Can I help you with anything? We'll go into the don'ts about prying in a minute, but so suggest that they get help if they say that they need it. Refer them to those resources that we talked about. Encourage them to use the employee wellbeing program and to stay well. So of course this is ongoing, an ongoing process to stay well. And appreciate their openness to talk with you and respect boundaries. And if that person isn't comfortable talking with you specifically, maybe let them know that there are other people in the company that are there to listen to them as well. What you don't want to do is you don't want to judge or reprimand them for opening up to you. You don't want to pressure them to just snap out of it or get over something. That's never really going to work, and it's really important, again, to get them the professional help that they need. You don't want to just stay away from them or ignore that the issue's happening. So for example, if somebody you know, is a really good performer usually, and all of a sudden they're coming late to work every day and that's out of character for them, and then you just ignore the issue, it may get worse over time, and that person's not going to necessarily get the help that they need. Don't assume the problem, as I just mentioned, will fix itself. Make sure that you do ask them, you know, if they can help or if there's something going on. And don't pry. They don't have any legal obligation to discuss it if it's not affecting their job, but it is okay, you know, to ask the employee if there's anything that you can do, again, as a colleague or a manager to help them. So how can we train management and leadership? In a minute, I will go over our programming, but it's important to educate leadership and managers on what mental health is and isn't, so they are able to recognize those signs and symptoms that Karl went over. Give them the tools necessary to respond appropriately, so make sure that they know all the resources that are available either through the EAP or through the community. And then create safe spaces for employees. So again, really have that open door policy. Let employees know that it is okay to talk to management and leadership about what's going on and they will not be reprimanded. And then make sure that policies are enforced on an ongoing basis. So it's important to also remember that mental health is good for business. Employees who realize that their employer group is, you know, recognizing how important mental health is and physical health, it will help benefit your bottom line. As Karl mentioned, you know, it's important that people come to work with the highest level of total well-being that they could have, because they will be more productive and more present at work, and you will also have less presenteeism and absenteeism. Insurance claims around mental health will be lowered. At first, if you're promoting mental health in the workplace, you may see an increase in this because people are getting help, but over time you're going to see less of those crisis situations. Morale will improve with open lines of communication, so employees will have more loyalty to your organization, knowing that you're actually caring about them. It will empower workers to really have that team culture, to be able to open up to each other and have the comfort level of, you know, maybe disclosing some information with what they're comfortable. and it will help with time management and stress reduction. So if people are coming to work, you know, at their highest level of total well-being, they will be more able to be as productive as possible, and you'll see less absenteeism, and people aren't going to be necessarily having that anxiety where they're walking on, you know, eggshells every day, so they will feel more comfortable in the workplace. So what is mindset? The Mental Health Association of Erie County created this program about a year ago. We had been doing some one-off presentations in the workplace for about 3 years, and we really saw a need for addressing mental health in the workplace in the Western New York area. I have worked with over 150 companies in my professional career as a health promotion specialist for 2 large insurance companies, and I've also seen the need for this through claims data. You know, we see the crisis situations around mental health, and also on health assessments, what people are asking, you know, what areas people are asking for help. And a lot of the areas include like stress management, the training for management and leadership, and also just coping with, you know, work and family stress and how to create that better balance. So we created a comprehensive program that addresses 3 different areas. The Enriched part is going to include, which is not up yet but should be in the next month, a free toolkit for employer groups to log on to our website and download to be able to just start opening up the conversation around mental health in the workplace. Some of you on the phone may not have a budget to bring on these trainings, but just to start opening up the conversation and getting the resources out to employees can be a huge step in the right direction. The Engage section includes 5 comprehensive courses that help employees build work-life balance, build stronger relationships, and help them recover from setbacks. We know that life happens and we spend so much time at work, but when you're at work, you may not only be dealing with work, you may be bringing other things in that are happening outside if you have a sick child or you're taking care of a parent. So these programs really help employees to better balance all the things that, you know, life really brings us. And the Empower section, we think, is really the most important section because wellness does really start at the top of an organization. These programs help to train management and leadership on how to reduce stigma, reduce the discrimination around mental health, and how to help management and leadership better respond to mental health in the workplace. I'll dive into it in detail in a minute, but we brought a program down from the Mental Health Association of Canada. It's called Mental Health Works, and they have been doing this program for 15 years in Canada, and it's been very successful there. So they do have some research behind that program as well. So as I mentioned, the Enriched program is going to be us helping create strategies for employer groups. So if you already have a wellness program, we are able to come on site and help you create a strategy to include mental health in your well-being program. We'll have the free online toolkit, and I can let Karen know when to get that, when it's up to send out to all of you as well, so you know when that is up on the website to download. The Engage section, as I mentioned, these are the programs that help employees create that work-life balance. The first course is a SAMHSA-approved course. It's evidence-based that we brought in from Yale University. It's a 12-week program. It's called Coping with Work and Family Stress. This is not just a seminar. It's actually a workshop, so people practice the skills that you learn. It can also be broken out into shorter modules focusing on different topics. So for example, if your organization needs to improve on communication, you can do stress as it relates to effective communication, and that, for example, would only be 4 weeks. Course 2, the Mindful Eating Program. This is a 10-week program. It's based on the mindfulness-based eating awareness training, which is also research-based through the National Institute of Health. I brought this program on because I think when people are having eating issues, it can really consume their minds, that they're obsessing over food. So this really gives you the tools necessary on how to, you know, have a better relationship with food, and you learn a lot of meditation and how to practice meditation and mindfulness in your daily life as it relates to food. Course 3, we partnered with Power Yoga Buffalo to bring on yoga, mindfulness, and meditation classes. These classes aren't just going to be your typical yoga class. We are having these instructors come in to potentially address some issues that you could be having in your workplace. For example, if teamwork in one department is something that, you know, you're seeing issues with, they will actually make the class around teamwork on the yoga class, or creativity could be another one where you have a big project coming up, so you could bring in a yoga class to help with creativity over time. And then course 4, these are the 1-hour sessions that we had done prior to creating the Mindset program that were very successful. We have a self-care session, which has been very popular for probably similar organizations to many of you on the phone, organizations where they have employees that are on the front line helping other people. This covers the importance of taking care of yourself to better take care of other people. Many of you on the phone, your employees are probably taking home, you know, a lot of emotional burdens just from the work that they do. So this can really help employees to make sure that they are putting themselves first when they are leaving work. Workplace well-being, this is just an overview similar to this presentation for either employees or management leadership to just show the importance of creating a mentally healthy workplace. And then the Mindful Eating 10-week program can also be brought to organizations in a 1-hour presentation that just gives an overview of the skills. It doesn't really dive into emotional eating or practicing meditation. It just dives into all of the skills that you learn through the 10-week class. The Empower section, as I mentioned, we believe that this is the most important part of our program because it really helps create that mentally healthy culture. We brought down the program from the Mental Health Association of Canada. It is called Mental Health Works. The essential training is the 1-hour training. They're broken out into time. So you can see there's the 1-hour, the 3-hour, and the 6-hour training. The 1-hour training can also be used for employees. It's broken out into different topics, so workplace mental health, mood and depression, stress and anxiety, and the psychological health and safety essentials. The Mental Health Association of Canada actually has a mental health and a psychological health and safety standard, so we took the concepts from that standard and are bringing them to the United States. We are the first mental health association in the U.S. to be bringing this program, so we're really excited about that. The In Focus training is a 3-hour training that really combines some of those topics from the essential training. And the longer that these sessions get, the more interactive they will get. So you will see videos, there will be case studies, some partner activities, and you'll really have that practice with the skills that you're learning. And then the 6-hour training, again, it really combines all those essential topics to give a more holistic understanding of mental health and mental illness. It's made up of 4 parts. All of them are actually made up of, this one's made up of 4 parts: awareness building, responding skills, collaboration, and social determinants of health. But all of these programs are actually work on a gear model, and the 3 gears are awareness building, which helps you learn the signs and symptoms, responding, which helps management and leadership on how to address mental health in the workplace and use active listening skills. And then collaborating, it helps the manager or leadership or even a colleague really collaborate with the person who is dealing with the issues to help them get the resources that they need, or to potentially even help create a work accommodation plan for them. So this program, we really just hope our 3 goals, as mentioned in my introduction, are to reduce stigma in the workplace around mental health, open up the conversation around mental health, and lower the barriers to employees getting help. Our goal is to really, not make this elephant in the room anymore, and, make it okay to be talked about and to get people the help that they need. If you have any additional questions at the end of this presentation, you can feel free to email info@rightmindset.com, and we're happy to help. If you would like to bring on any of the programs, you can also send an email to info@rightmindset.com. We can also send you, we have a brochure that lists out all of the different programs, and we can also send you a pricing sheet as well. If you have any questions, please type them in on the webinar, and we are happy to answer them. We have about 10 minutes, so feel free to ask any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Victoria and Karl. So do folks have any questions for Victoria and Karl? Again, we have 10 minutes left, so please feel free to type your question into the chat box. We do have one question. So the question is, what is the cost of these programs? Are they covered by any insurance?
There are different, there's a pricing sheet that I can follow up with you. There's different pricing for each of the program. But for example, for the 1-hour presentations, they are $300. If you would like to reach out, there may be some funding for your organization depending on what your organization is. We do have some funding available. They are not covered at this point through insurance companies. We have partnered with Independent Health and Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm not sure if you have any like wellness dollars with them that you could use, but they aren't covered actually like under claims for the insurance companies.
We'll leave it open for about 1 more minute if anybody would like to type in any questions.
For the 1-hour sessions, there is not a limit for how many people can attend. Some of the other more interactive sessions like coping with work and family stress, the 10-week mindful eating session, and some of the mental health works programs, there is a limit to how many people can attend only because of the interactive nature. So, you know, the more people we have, the more time we will need. But again, if you have any specific questions, do not hesitate to reach out and we can give you all of those details. But as far as the 1 hour, there is no limit.
We do have another question. Are the training sessions only for Erie County?
No, they are for all of Western New York. And we also can do webinars too if you have multiple locations, even outside of the county.
Okay, last call for any questions for Victoria or Karl.
We just wanted to say thank you so much for having us. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.
Well, thank you very much, Karl and Victoria, for presenting today, and thank you for everyone for being on the webinar today. So as the webinar closes out, a survey will pop up, so please take a minute to complete the survey, and you'll also receive a follow-up email with the survey, so we would really appreciate your feedback on today's webinar. So I just wanted to thank everybody again for joining us on our bi-monthly FIP webinar. And have a wonderful rest of your day and a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.